I'm going to give 2 minutes of grace here because of the change of time, that they may realize that it is 6. Okay, so just in preparation for it, I'm going to ask you to have your outlines in front of you on the page number 3, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Number 1, 2, page 2 or 3, depending if you count the first page. So, yeah. I do well by offering graces. Barb is coming. Dan, thank you for remembering that we start at 6. Beautiful, brother. That's beautiful. And we'll wait. I'll wait for a few more that might join us late. I have a few announcements to do anyway, so. It's recording right now. This will be still be updated on Zoom, uploaded. I mean on the Zoom capacity. So if you miss session, there is always a way to come back to it. I add a sticker with announcements here. Right here. Wait. So all right, let's begin slowly. I'm going to keep my eyes on the portal to invite those who might be joining late and so on. So it's good to see you. I'm glad to carry on with you guys on the Hebrews letter, the epistle to the Hebrews. And before I start, I have a few announcements to do. Maybe the first thing to do, it's the change of time. Try to remind you people that we're going to do 6 to 7, not 6:30 anymore, to 7:30, just for me to adjust the time to arrive home a little bit earlier and so on. I would like to wish you a blessed new year, and I have homework for you for the new year. I like to use Psalm 90, Psalm 90, verse 17, and I would like you to make a commitment. It says, bless the work of our hands, please establish the work of our hands. He says it twice. I think it's a good prayer to do so that you may carry on with the willingness to be established, specifically in the time that we are in right now. I don't know if you realize that we are in 2025, and the declining of the church age has been going on for years and centuries and so on. So it's time, like ever before, to fasten the spiritual seatbelt and to be given to the text and the strength of it and so on. So I invite you to carry on with us as much as you can, and thank you for partaking in the ministry, and thank you for supporting the ministry also. Another announcement, a little bit surprising for some people. The Sword Ministries Society has a branch now in the United States. We have a branch in North Carolina. It's been established in North Carolina. It's called the Sword of the Spirit, TSS Ministry, TSSM. It's a corporation, they're fully functional. So it does not affect you at all. It does not affect the teaching of the Sword Ministry Society. So if you know people in the States, anywhere you go that would like to join us, they can donate basically in US dollar, and they will receive their tax receipt and so on. And you can pray for TSSM, which is the American branch for the prosperity and the growth in North Carolina. There is a lot of young people there that are waiting to be discipled and so on. What else I wanted to say? We can get into your outline. I'm going to make a short review, saying a few things again that needs to be said about the book of Hebrews. And then we carry on. We are right here, beloved. The evidence of faith, of the faith, of the life of faith. We are on chapter 11. All the scriptures that you see here belong to the chapter 11. Would you note this? I'm going to read it for you. Before we start, I would like you to note that. If you go straight to the page 2, part 3, at the bottom of part 3, you have B, the evidence of the life of faith there. I would like to subdivide this before we embark into the number one, the endurance of faith, and number two, the examples of faith. I would like to subdivide chapter 11, verses 1 to 40 this way. So make a note. It's not on your outline. So I would like you to divide point B, the evidence of the life of faith. I would like to subdivide it in three parts. So the number one says in the board, faith in the pre-patriarch or patriarchal time. Faith in the pre-patriarchal time. And it goes from verses 4 to 7. This is your first subdivision under B. Then following verse 7, you have number 2, faith in the patriarchal time. In the patriarch time. This one is pre-patriarch. Here we are in the patriarch. I mean patriarch Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. It goes from verses 8 to 22. Just to help you to divide the passage properly. Leading to number 3, faith in the wilderness wandering. It's just abbreviation here. Wilderness wandering, verses 23 to 31. Verses 23 to 31. Number 4, faith in trials. Verses 32 to 38. And then finally, number 5, we're going to be talking about victory of faith in 2 verses, 39 and 40. So that's how I would like to divide with you the 40 verses that we're embarking tonight. Let me know when you're ready. Just do it like this when you're ready to carry on, because it was not on your outline. Okay. Maybe 3 points to remember at large about what we have done. Would you go back to page 1? I have nothing to say about the introductory material. You have the 9 points there. Most of you did the extensive study with me, so it's right there. What's important is the historical background of the letter. Remember this, pay close attention. Because if we violate the historical background, we can end up with the letter in the ditch. It's very important to understand the sin of Kadesh Barnea. Okay, the sin of Kadesh Barnea. In the book of Numbers, when basically they reach a point of no return, they send the 12 spies. They don't believe the 3 that said the truth. They believe the other guys, and the Jews at that place. They reach a point of no return, meaning the wilderness wandering. Lots of people, including Moses, died in the wilderness without seeing the Holy Land. There were some believers, it doesn't matter. They were part of the nation, and they died in the wilderness wandering. The recipient of the book of Hebrews, that's why the title of the book is Hebrews, not Gentiles. They are ready, they are just on the edge of making a point of no return also. Not in the wilderness wandering, but what they want to do, it's to return to the law so that the persecution may subside. So they are about to make a decision like the ancient decision of Kadesh Barnea, and that would cause them to reach death physically. Because the AD 70 destruction of the temple and the city is on the way. Because this epistles was written in 66 or 68 AD. So the destruction of the city is right around the corner. So that's why the letter of the book of Hebrews is written to Hebrew believers that are just about ready to call the bad shot. Instead of pressing on to maturity, they want to go back to the Levitical system so that the persecution may subside, but they don't have that option. The writer says you carry on, okay? And the author here, what he does with the book of Hebrews at large, that we need to remember, because you will study it in small groups, you will be receiving messages from the pulpit, and I don't want you to be led astray. It's very important for me. What the author does, we said it all, He takes Moses from Judaism, he takes the angels, and he takes the Levitical system, which are the three pillars of Judaism. Judaism rests on angels, Moses, and the Levitical institution, meaning all the sacrifice, and he shows the superiority of the Messiah, Christ Jesus, as over anything, the three pillars. The Messiah is higher than Moses, the Messiah is higher than the angels, and the Messiah supersedes all the Levitical system because he is the last offering. Based upon what I just said right now, you will never take the book of Hebrews outside of this primary context. So we have done part 1. We have done part 2. Superior to angels, superior to Moses, turn the page. We have seen on part 2 the first warning on page 1. We have seen the second warning, the danger of disobedience. We also covered the third warning, failure to progress to maturity, which is a good admonishing for us. And then we have reached part 3, the practical application and the preeminence of the Son in our walk here. And we have seen together the fourth warning, the danger of willful sin. I left you with the encouragement, with no need to make a review at that point. I would like to move forward with you with capital B, the evidence of the life of faith, with what you have on the board. So basically, this is what I intended to do tonight with you. A small snapshot of what we have done so far, because we're not that old, so you will be exposed to question about the book of Hebrews. And every time that a minister anywhere stand up, a tape that you listen to, a pastor brings a message on the book of Hebrews, you ought to remember the primary context, because you might receive bad information concerning the losing of salvation and taking the book of Hebrews outside of its context. If you go outside of the context a tiny bit by saying that they were not ready believers and so on, you will get all over the map with this and you will simply be led astray. So that's why the context for me, for your soul, it's a concern that I have, but I'm not God to protect you against this. However, my work is to send the information properly. I do not want you to be led astray concerning the book of Hebrews. Having said this, if you are ready, I am ready. We move on into the exposition. Capital B on your outline at the bottom under part 3. The evidence of the life of faith, and this will apply to all of us. It's rich right there. So be in chapter 11 of your Hebrews. Before I start, now we'll let you make your notes. Let me make 4 observations on the chapter 11, capital B, the evidence of the life of faith. Observation number 1. The Old Testament saints had faith, so they should do the same in the situation that they are in. The Old Testament saints had faith in the past, so they, the Jews of the recipient of the book of Hebrews proper, in their situation of being persecuted, they should exercise faith. Something that applies to us as well. It was number 1. Second observation, the Old Testament saints exercise patient endurance. They did also exercise, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, patient endurance. They must do the same too. To be patient and to believe the future, and so on. And remember, patient endurance, always remember the context of it, because they are under heavy persecution. So they need to be patient and move on. This was my second observation. The third one, if you want to go back with me in chapter 6, verse 12, chapter 6, verse 12, it says this: so that you will not be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. So those who through faith of 6:12, we find them here in chapter 11. That's why we have the many examples of faith in chapter 11, and it correlates beautifully with chapter 6, verse 12, the example of faith of the Old Testament saints. That was my third observation. You know that I do use the New American Standard. The word faith in my translation is found 25 times in the entire chapter, or in that section. 25 times in the chapter. So it is significant. This is my fourth observation. So number one, Old Testaments had set faith, they should do the same. Number two, the Old Testament had patient endurance, they should imitate that. Number three, chapter 6, verse 12, they have example, biblical example. That's why I'm not a storyteller, beloved. The story of Joe Blow, they can be good stories, but I think in the era, in the epochs that we are in right now, I think it's necessary to leave some story aside and go back to biblical story that the people are not taught anymore. So less story, more theology. I think it's better to learn and to press on to maturity. And the last one, the word faith, used 25 times. So with this, chapter 11, verse 1, you come. Now faith, circle faith, is the assurance of things hoped. Is the assurance of things hoped for. The conviction of things not seen. Read again. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for. The conviction of things not seen. What you have here in verse 1 is not a definition of faith. It is not a definition of it. But it is the description of faith. He describes faith. He does not define it. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Here, he is not talking about saving faith here. The faith here is not saving faith. But the faith in verse 1 is the faith of the principle of faith. What's the principle? About things still future and things unseen. We need to have faith about our destiny. We need to have faith about the Messianic kingdom, although we don't see it right now. And keep in mind that faith works both ways in the book of Hebrews. It's going to go in the past. Have you ever witnessed the creation? Were you there when God created all the constellation and so on? You were not. There was no eyewitness to it. Do you believe that it did happen? If you say yes from the heart, you have faith without having seen anything. And then you move faith future, which is the things hoped for. Would you like to have a body without ache and so on, a new glorified body? You will, because that's what's awaiting you. I cannot show you a person right now with a glorified body. So it has to be taken by faith, not saving faith necessarily, but faith as the principle. And also the one living by faith has patient endurance. He does patiently endure. In verse 1, again, I would like you to circle the word assurance. The word assurance has an emphasis there. Because faith is the essence of future reality. It is future reality, a thing that we do not have the right to allegorize. What do you mean, François, by allegorizing? You know, because I say it often. Many segments of the church denominations at large, they say that the Messianic kingdom has to be allegorized. This is a destruction of the faith as a principle. So we cannot allegorize a future reality. You will be back with Christ on the Messianic kingdom for a period of 1,000 years, and it has to be taken by faith. You will be in charge of nations. You will rule over unsaved Gentiles. You will share the gospel to them. You will not have the capacity to do mistakes anymore. Your memory won't fail, and we need to take it by faith, because that's exactly what you will do, based upon what you are learning right now in the church age, in preparation for it. Such as reaching, also it does include reaching spiritual maturity. The fact that you grow spiritually, and I see it, is things hoped for also. The forgiveness of sin, unquestionable anymore. Unquestionable anymore for people that grow. Your sins, past, present, and future, have been covered, or taken away rather, by the blood of the Messiah. The second return of Christ. As much as he came, you just celebrated Christmas, don't think only Walmartology. Okay? It was the birth of the Messiah, and also in a few months the death of Christ, and he will come back. The heavenly rest, we have seen that in the book of Hebrews. The glorification, the rapture, name it. So that's the assurance of these things. We are still on verse 1. Circle the word for me, hope. Hope is not a wish. Oh, I wish that. It's not a dream. It's not a fantasy, but a reality. It's real hope. When you study the Bible, when you learn a nugget or chicken nugget or a little piece of it, and you take it by faith because it's written in the book, it's a reality. It's a sheer reality. So everything that I said a few minutes ago concerning rapture, second return, it's in the Bible. Don't go into the childish saying that, oh, the word rapture is not in the Bible. We no longer have time for that. We need to use that time to explain to the people what it is. Despite the fact that we don't have the word rapture in the Bible, but we have the Greek term for it and so on. You can make your point with these things. Okay? Its foundation is in the text. It's in the scriptures, the foundation of your hope. Do you lit the candle of hope for Christmas? I don't know what was the message in your churches at large, and I'm not really interested to know. Hope is everything that we find in the text that is awaiting us. If you hope for peace on this planet and in this age, your hope will be a deception. There will be no peace on this planet until the Lord's return. You have seen New Orleans, you have seen plane crashes, and it will not be solved of this world. And it has to be understood. So what's the hope concerning this? A better age to come. The Messiah is coming to establish the age to come in a Jewish talk. We are in the present age, the age of man, and the age to come is the Messianic kingdom. That should be your hope and mine. Look at the expression conviction of things, or proof. You might have proof in the New King James or King James. The word proof is the certainty of things not seen. This is the evidence of things not seen. Because we do operate by faith. Be honest with me, because I'm like anybody. We like the tangible. We like to touch things, a paycheck, tables and chairs, a property, a work. You go out, you receive an outline, you touch it, you look at it. And we say in ourselves, which is logical from the world viewpoint, it's tangible. You're looking to a screen right now. You can touch the screen. You can mute yourself. It's tangible. But in reality, your screen is the intangible, because your screen will be done away with in 2 years. So what is the tangible? The things unseen. That's the tangible. According to the people that do exercise faith. Conviction this is the feeling that I would like to have, and this is the feeling that I would like to convey to you. It's a feeling of certainty. I'm asking you, don't answer. You saved? We ought to have that certainty together. If we want to display a product, which is the gospel of the Messiah, to the unsaved. If I am insecure in my faith, how can I do the work of an evangelist? How can I convict those who will OD on the street tonight if I'm wavering in my faith? So that's the certainty and a feeling inside. You go to bed at night, if I die, heart stopping and so on, we know together where we are going. End of the sentence. We don't negotiate that anymore. When we are immature, yes. And that's why they need to maturity, to move on to maturity. Basically, to wrap this up, verse 1, a person that lives by faith, he lives out his belief. Touch a point. He lives out his belief. He's waiting for the rapture. He's waiting for the second coming. He's waiting for the Messianic kingdom. And then he's waiting for the eternal order and much more. Don't be offended by what I say. You know the story of Trump and Trudeau right now. And you know what Trump is saying, looking down on us a little bit, if you want to put it this way. And he said, you, Canada, should be part of the US. Why not? I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm for it. Because I am for it. Because if Canada becomes a part of the United States, it will lead the North American continent to the one world government. And this is my hope. If you want to stay part of Canada independent, how will the one world government on this planet, which is the next stage of prophecy, will be fulfilled? So I don't sweat it. Let's become the 52nd state and let's go to the one world government, because that's what we should be waiting for the end time. Heck of a deal. We need the one world government. Why not of our time? But we want to protect this because here, this country, this world, this globe lies in the lap of the evil one. And we are waiting for the resurface, the reinstitution, the reorganization of this planet under the reign of one King Messiah. That should be our focus. And the prophecies that you know that right now we are in the balance of the East and the West, you know, the Muslim bloc of the East, Russian and so on, Iran, Iraq, and the principle of democracy of the Western world. This has to stop to pave the way or the highway of the one world government. And the wish of Trump, it's aligning to it. Why not? But you have to lose our dollars, whatever. I'm just giving you an idea of what it is to say, hey, come on, why not of my time? Don't be offended by this. I think it's a beautiful idea, by the way. Verse 2. For by it the men of old gain approval. For by it, what's the it? By faith, the men of old gain approval. We're going to get with them in a moment. What's the point? The faith of the Old Testament saints was observed by others. The faith of the Old Testament saints was observed by others. This is the construction of the Greek tense right now. It's a passive statement. It is a passive voice that is used there in the Greek. So their faith was genuine. And they were example. That's why you will get deeper into chapter 11. That's all I have to say about verse 2. You come with me in 11:3. By faith, I talk about looking back. We understand that the worlds, plural, were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. Youch, it's beautiful. Faith does not always look forward. Faith sometimes look backward. I gave the example of creation. Moses, who wrote the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, he wrote the account of the creation. Was he there? No. He compiled documents. We will study Genesis on tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. for the general public, including the States at 7 p.m. But faith, he wrote it, never seen it, but that's what we need to exercise. Those who teach that these things are the product of a Big Bang, these are statements of faith, of unbelief, and to make statements like this, it's a proof that the person is not saved. Like millions of years in between. This is not acceptable in the Christian faith. He created it in six days. So look, faith looks forward. I am in a situation like this when I'm asking what kind of a change might happen in 2025 to me. It looks forward. Ask me if I waver in my faith. Come on. Of course I do. Of course I do. I would be a liar that I have a complete faith. No. Sometimes I doubt and so on. It's part of the game. But when I look backward, I'm solid though. I'm a creationist. He could have done that in 6 minutes. He has chosen days. Why? Because earth is for mankind. It's to be seen in the book of Genesis. Moses was not present when he wrote the account. Creation occurred. The believers did not see it, but he believes it. Job 38:4. Don't go, I will go for you. Make a note. Job 38:4. Job is a masterpiece of literature. Job 38:4. Where were you, Job? I'm paraphrasing. Where were you, Job, when I laid the foundation of the earth? Question. Tell me. Come on, Job, tell me if you have understanding. The where were you, Job? He was not even thought. He was not even born. It happens, whatever, maybe 10,000 years before the presence of Job, or maybe 12 or 15, not billions, not millions. Where were you, Job? So who established it? The Word of God. Everything he spoke, blah, 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 and it was done. Would you like it? Speaking something? My head gasket is replaced, and you drive the truck after the statement. We only wish. But he has the capacity to do it though. People are joining right now. All right, I'm going to move to, we're still in verse 3. I'm going to wait, Jennifer. We start at 6 now. Sorry.
I've been here since 6.
Pardon me, dear you?
I've been here since 6.
How come you have never been invited?
I don't know. I've been watching you for half an hour.
You've been watching for half an hour?
I've been listening. Yeah, I've been here the whole time.
Oh, I never saw you. You just joined in now. Oh,
yeah.
I think I'm mistaken, Jennifer. Forget my statement. Emily, we start at 6 now, dear you.
I'm very sorry to hear that because I do work till 6:30.
I apologize for this because it does accommodate me a little bit more for the family life and stuff like this. So the Wednesday night, Jennifer and others will be at 6 to 7. But keep in mind, dear you, that you can always catch up on YouTube.
Right.
Because it's recorded. Okay, it's just for me coming back home and unwind and so on. It's kind of a selfish decision, but with the child, it's a different lifestyle and so on.
Are you child?
Pardon me?
That's Keith. He's here too.
Okay, beautiful. Let's go back to verse 3, where it says, basically, by faith, we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. I would like to circle the word in the statement that the word was prepared by the word of God is the word Rhema, R-E-I-M-A. It's not the word memra there, it's the word Rhema, and the emphasis on the word Rhema is the spoken word. basically spoken word. I just gave you the example of it. He spoke, and it does happen. He does not push a wheelbarrow. Everything was created by his word. It's a speech. Let there be, and it was. So it was built by his word. Okay? And the creation was out of nothing. In Latin, we say ex nihilo, ex space nihilo, which is creation out of nothing. Nihilo is N-I-H-I-L-O. Creation was out of nothing, and of course we take it by faith. Krista, can you hear me?
Yes.
Krista, sorry, we start at 6 now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for understanding. It was saying that on the email, but for next week, join us at 6 if you can, dear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So nowadays, the faith wavers sometimes, looking ahead. Why? Because we look ahead with doubts. There is different views, pre-tribulational, post-tribulational, and so on. But there are biblical views. And the biblical views are a rapture that is pre-tribulational and a second return that is premillennialist. That's the teaching of the scriptures, and that's part of the hope that we have. And the key thing not to violate these things, you will say, Francois, how come you don't endorse the other one? Because the other view, they don't make a clear-cut separation between Israel and the church. They put the church in the Great Tribulation, therefore they're all mixed up. We have to make a clear-cut distinction between the nation of Israel as a nation and the church age. Okay? So once taught properly, we should not waver in the hope that we have for the things of the future. With this, we made the introductory material of the chapter. Okay? So the introductory material of the chapter is behind us. To help those who just joined me, now for verses 4 to 7 of chapter 11, we look at the faith in the pre-patriarchal time. What is the patriarch? Look at my fingers. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. We will see example of faith during that period of time. So we take number 1, which you do not have on your outlines. I designed it in a sense so that it might be a little bit more followable. If I ever teach the book again, I will add this on the outlines. So now we look at verses 4 to 7 right here of the account of the chapter of faith. You come with me. I read the whole thing, we circle a few things. Verse 4. By faith Abel, circle faith, offered to God a better sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained the testimony that he was righteous. God, testifying about his gifts, and through faith, circle faith, though he is dead, he still speaks. I want you to circle, he still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken up, so that he would not see death. And he was not found because God took him up, because he obtained the witness that before his being taken up, he was pleasing to God. There is no verse of the rapture in the Bible. You just read it. At the time of the Enoch was raptured. Same Hebrew word and same Greek word. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him, capital H. By faith Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, in reverence, circle in reverence, prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to circle faith. We start the exposition. That's a part that I very much like. Abel, verse 1, verse 4, showed faith through the recognition of an obligation. Verse 4, by faith Abel offered to God a better sacrifice. He knew what to offer and he did it. Does it apply to me? He knew what to do and he did it. Does it apply to me? I know what to say and I know what to do. Do I do it? It hits home for me, actually. Cain went his own way. You remember Frank Sinatra? I did it my way. The song here. Cain, no, I'm going to bring this here. A bouquet of flower, fruits, and so on. But that doesn't bleed. So Cain understood that he needed to offer a sacrifice, shedding blood. He knows that from the Pentateuch at that time. The blood of Genesis 3:15 and Genesis chapter 3 verse 21. He brought a better sacrifice. The blood sacrifice that he offered, Cain offered the proper sacrifice. This did not make Abel righteous. Tell me what rendered Abel righteous? What is it? Tell me. Beautiful. Faith. So we go to church. We donate. We sing. You become an elder. You help groups and so on. You preach occasionally. You teach the Word of God. That does not save us. But our faith does. And he was pleasing to God. Even now dead, every time that you do a study character in a small group or you study Hebrew, every time that you speak about them, that's the expression saying, and he still speaks. And we're doing that right now. It's not me that speaks a righteous sacrifice. It's Abel. So that's the sentence. He still speaks. Every time that we preach this, we make him speak and so on. Even now dead, he still speaks. We do that in character study and Bible study of that kind. What happened with him, Abel? It's a three-stage progression. Three-stage progression which apply to us. Number one, he believed. Hence, bringing the proper sacrifice. He believed what was written. He was capable of reading Genesis, the account of Moses type of thing. The fall of man was not very far from him. So he knew what happened. He knew the account of Adam and Eve and so on. So he believed God, that there was a God, and therefore, hence, as a result of, he brought a better sacrifice. Number two, a better sacrifice shows righteousness. A better sacrifice that you offer shows righteousness. Encouraging the weak type of thing. Partaking in the church for proper motivation, not to gain brownie points. Living a life of faith, supporting ministry, praying for ministry. That's the better sacrifice. It shows that you are righteous and so on. Leading to number three, because of righteousness, being true witness of the life of faith. The more you exercise, obey, and believe the word and do the word here, it shows that you lead a life of faith. Not easy, beloved. Not easy. Because of that righteousness, the desire to be true, a true witness for the Messiah, shows a life of faith. So three-stage progression: believing, offering, walking the walk, doing what God does ask us to do. Since we have become righteous, we display righteousness, we display the Messiah. Now you're ready to share the faith. You come with me in verses 5 to 6. By faith Enoch was taken up, so that he would not see death, and he was not found because God took him up. Because he obtained the witness that before his being taken up, he was pleasing to God. Verse 6, and without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who are seeking him. In verse 5, we have the word translated, taken up. If you have the King James Version, I love the King James for this verse, it says translated. And it's a good translation. If you have, instead of the word taken up, if you have the word translated, it is perfect. In the group, in the Hebrew language of that time, it says he was not, and he knew, and he was not. He was taken up, he was raptured. And what happened with Enoch, it was not a mere transfer of locality, but it was a transformation when he was taken away, where corruption was clothed for Enoch with incorruption. when the mortal of Enoch was transformed into immortality. And for that reason, he cannot be one of the two witnesses of the book of Revelation, because the two witnesses will be put to death. Enoch right now cannot be one of them, because Enoch is simply immortal. So rule out Moses and Enoch, or Enoch of Elijah, as the two witnesses. It's not a valid way of seeing this. Okay? Because he was pleasing to God, God took him. Might happen to us anytime. Verse 6, and without faith it is impossible to please him. For he comes to God must believe, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and so on. We must believe that God exists. We possess it right now. And he is the rewarder of those who seek him. You seek him, guess what? He will let himself be found. And tonight, that's what we do. In different capacities also. Be careful not to bring him to our limited of understanding. He is the reward of all things. Too often, expositors and some pastors, we take God and we would like to bring him down to our level. Okay? Keep in mind, easy words is infinite and we are finite. So don't try to grab it by the collar and say you come down to my level. Ain't going to happen. We do not have the capacity to comprehend such an incomprehensible being. He has given you the capacity to understand his words, and that's what he has chosen to give us, 66 books of the scriptures. That's what we ought to study to understand who he is in the person of Jesus Christ here. So he is the rewarder of those who seek him, and rewards will happen. Don't get into the Christian cliche. Oh, I'm not doing it for the rewards. You can say it, don't use it as a cliche. When you serve in the church age, you will be rewarded. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. What you're learning, what you're sharing with the people, how you love the people, how you weep with the people, how you encourage the weak, name it, will be rewarded. Have this faith. You will have a special position in the Messianic kingdom, not based upon your life prior to conversion, prior to how we steward in the life of faith in the church age. Everything will be based upon the good stuff that we do, and the bad stuff will be burnt, but not you. That's what we call the Bema. So let's go back into the context of Hebrews. Okay, with all this. We are studying the chapter of faith. What's the reason here? He wants to give good example of faith for the reason, guys, don't go back to the Jewish system of the temple. Press on to maturity. Exercise faith behind in the creation and exercise what's waiting for you in the future. And the decision that they will make on the last chapter, when I will be explaining what happened to the recipient of the book of Hebrews, is worthy of rewards, and they will be rewarded. You with me? Am I losing you? Beautiful. A context. That's the context of it. It's beautiful. Verse 7. How are we doing for time? Beautiful. Did we do verse 6? Have I done verse 6? The two steps, yeah. And without faith it is impossible to please him, because he is the rewarder of those who are seeking him. And you seek him. Right now. You want to know the will of God? Right now. You exercise the will of God at 6 or 6:30 p.m. BC time. Don't seek the will right now. What are you seeking in the page? What are you reading? What are we studying together? We seek him more. We strive to do what? Spiritual maturity. That's exactly the will of God for right now. Heck for tomorrow morning. We're not there yet. When I was at Cape Henry Harbor years ago, 1996, what's the will of God? What's the will of God? I'm so thankful that he kept silent on this one, because I would have returned to the pub running. Because I didn't want to see the videotape or the CD of my Christian walk and how the suffering that accompanied that sometimes, I would have grabbed the boat in the opposite direction, exactly like Jonah did. Thank you that he did not show me the will at that time. Number 7, verse 7. By faith Noah, circle Noah, being warned by God about things not yet seen, circle not yet seen, in reverence, circle reverence. He prepared an ark for the salvation of his household. Salvation here, it's not the salvation of faith, it's the deliverance of the flood in that context, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith, and so on. In the time of Noah, no rain. The what was watering the earth at that time is the dew in the morning, overnight. Never rain on the planet at that time. No rain was ever seen. No flood was ever seen at that time. But he believed God. I do not have that kind of faith. I don't have an example to give you coming up with something that you've never seen, never exists, and I say to you in 20 years it's going to be existing, and asking you to believe in the product. 30 years ago I would have told you that a car will be electric, or 50 years ago you said, come on. But it's there right now. So he had the faith, and he built the ark in reverence or fear. It's pious care, religious concern. That's the meaning of reverence here. Pious, P-I-O-U-S, care, piety, the things of God. Being concerned about the things of God. What's the next government for Canada? Who cares about it? What's the point? We ought to be given to religious concern. I don't like the word religious because of the cliche that goes on, but it's a word, and religious concern the things of God. And us Christians, we have been known by the only God that does exist. We did not find him. He found us. So how much more we should be concerned about the things of his. Religious concern. Noah's faith did 2 things. Number 1, he condemned the world by a visible sign. What's the visible sign? Everybody that was walking on the broad walk type of thing saw him building an ark, and it was not an overnight issue. So it was the sign, the ark, a judgment is coming, guys. There will be rain. Of course he was laughed at. There will be rain. Of course he was laughed at. So it was for the world system a visible sign of unbelief. And secondly, God imputed righteousness to him. Why? Because he obeyed in faith. A faith that I would like to have. If God moves me, will he be providing? Or he has only the capacity to provide on Vancouver Island? I just wish. These are people to imitate. And the recipient of the book of Hebrews ought to imitate just this. Are you with me? Take a deep breath. In 7 minutes or 6, you will no longer be with me. So let's move on. Number 2. This is tick mark. It's getting raptured right now, that part. Number 2, faith in the patriarchal time. Everything that we have seen, and as example, Cain and Abel, Noah, was pre-patriarch. Do you understand this? Now we get into the patriarchal time. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Now he's going to go a little bit closer to us. He's moving along. It's kind of chronological if you want to. It's a beautiful chapter. Faith in the patriarchal time goes from 8 to 22. We won't have time to cover tonight. Heck of a deal. Abraham example, they go from 8 to 19. The examples of Abraham. This is a wealth. This is beautiful. Abraham's example. Come with me, verse 8. By faith, Avram, or Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out. You circle when he was called. he obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. You will like that here. The Greek construction of verse 8 is when he was told. He did not spend 10 days praying about it. He moved right away. Right away. That's the construction of the tense in Greek. It shows that the action occurred at the same time that the word of God was spoken to him. Oh, but I will pray about it. There was no such a thing of praying about it in this example of Abraham. You move, you move. While being called. That's why I asked you in verse 8, when he was called. And when he was called, if you say, Francois, he stood up, pack his luggage, go. Where? Didn't know. He didn't know where. At all. Priceless for me, like it. He was told to go without knowing where. Abraham shows a pilgrimage of faith. And it's going to be all along with Abraham. What a man. What a person. I'm going to leave you with this tonight. No, I'm going to save it for next week. Verse 9. By faith he lived, Abraham, as an alien in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs of the same promise. He came not as an owner. God saying, go there. But he came as a pure stranger in the promised land. The word tents, circle that, because it was for him a temporary abode. It doesn't say a house. So with a tent, when you go tenting somewhere, you move the tent when you travel. These were temporary dwellings for the patriarch. And then he was blessed with the Abrahamic covenant, sustained by Isaac and Jacob later on, the covenant sustained. That's why they are named in that place. Verse 10. Because he, Abraham, was looking for the city which has foundations, whose architect and builders is God. Ooh. He was looking for Revelation 21 and 22. He didn't know the gap, poor him, poor Abraham, but he was looking for the heavenly Jerusalem. He was looking for the heavenly Jerusalem. Are we? Make a note of the passages. Chapter 11, verse 16 of Hebrews. 11:16. 12:22. And 13:14 is precious. Chapter 13, verse 14 says this. Here. I circled that one. For here we do not have a lasting city, but we are seeking the city which is to come. Francois, is it what you're seeking? Absolutely not. In my everyday life, I'm looking at places to stay and so on and so forth, and I'm worried about my next abode, where I should be attracted to the everlasting abode of Revelation chapter 21 and 22. We are normal people. And it's so hard for us sometimes to confess our weaknesses because the people hold them against us. It's not what we seek, but it's normal. We need a place to stay. Some people didn't move in 2024, 2023. You need a roof and you need to go online and find for something fully understood, and God is with you with this. But where is our heart on a daily basis? Looking at the scriptures and the hope that is ahead of us. Do we have a concern for the heavenly Jerusalem after the 1,000-year reign? We will get into the eternal order. Pavement of gold, and so on and so forth. No sun, no moon, no stars, no seas. And everybody wants a waterfront property. You're not going to get the waterfront property